I remember what killed me was like, I turned 21. I'm pretty sure it was a weekend that time. I said, okay, I don't want to work on my birthday because then I work almost every day, but I really don't want to work on my birthday or on certain holidays. Like that's where I draw the limit. And I still remember after that, I had asked that owner for some shares. I worked really hard. They didn't have that many employees. I really put my heart and soul in it. And I remember she told me, if you really wanted to own a piece of this company, you would have worked every day.
So thanks again for coming all the way here.
Yeah.
This is your day in Vienna, right?
This is my day in Vienna. Yeah, I don't venture out into the inner city too much anymore. I just take the train to Hauptbahnhof and go home.
What does a day in Vienna mean for you professionally?
Well, to visit you, and then I'm going to go turn around and go back home and back to the kids. So I have 2 kids now, so I don't get to have a day in Vienna. I get to have an hour in Vienna.
Yeah.
I get to turn around and go right back home.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. I'm curious to know a little bit about why are you in Austria? What brought you here? When did that happen?
So I'm obviously not Austrian, as you probably have noticed. I'm from California, and I think people move for generally 2 reasons. So either for work or for love. I moved for love, but I also found work, so it's kind of a nice mix of both. So basically, I met my husband, who's Austrian, right? I met him when he was studying abroad in California at my university. And then I went to study abroad in London. And as your typical American, I was like, well, I know someone that lives pretty close to London. They just live in Vienna, just a few stops away. Right. And then so basically, we were dating between London and Vienna, and then it went California to Vienna. And then I decided to move here after college just because I didn't really enjoy working in California so much anymore. And at the time I was working for Cisco, this big international IT company. And I got really lucky because I tried to find a job in Vienna. I knew Cisco had an office in Vienna, but to apply to a job in a country you don't live in it with a language, they speak German, and I didn't speak German at the time. It's not very easy, but I got lucky because I had met in the Cisco gym, a woman, and she was complaining. She was complaining about having to wake up early to have meetings with people in Vienna. And then so I grabbed onto her and was like, what do you do? How do I work for you? And then that's how I came to Vienna. So I want to come here to be with my now husband, but I also came here day one with a job at Cisco.
I'm assuming that later, because now you're an entrepreneur, you have your own company, and tell me a little bit about this switch. How did you move from a job to creating jobs?
Yeah, I guess you can take the girl out of Silicon Valley, right? But you can't really get that mentality away. No, I work for an IT company. My co-founders at My Expat Taxes, they're also from Cisco. I work with a lot of people I had worked with at Cisco. And I remember at the time, you have lunch with your colleagues, and I really enjoyed working with my now co-founders, and they would, I would complain, as everyone does, right? I complained about having to file my U.S. taxes, and then they're Austrian. They're like, well, why do you have to file U.S. taxes? You don't live there. And so I get into the whole spiel of, okay, if you're an American, if you live abroad, it doesn't matter if you don't have any U.S. income, you still have to file a U.S. tax return. We're one of the 2 countries that does that. Yeah. And, then it came to the question of, well, why don't you solve it? Why don't we build a software for it? And then why not? Right? And so once you kind of have that pain point, it was my pain point, and then you have the people around you that have the expertise for it. So I was coming from the finance accounting side, I could do the tax side, right? I got the certifications from the IRS to do the tax side. My co-founders were on the technical and the operational side. And so kind of once you have the team, right, the dream team, and you have the idea and the pain point to, kind of solve, then it goes from there. And so that was back in, the end of 2017. We launched our MVP in, March of 2018. And now it's, it's a lot different, but it's still the same pain point. It's still, how do I create that software that I really wanted when I moved abroad, right? And I still use the software to this day to file my own taxes.
From 20 17, 18 to now, do you feel like the landscape of doing business in Austria has improved for you, or has it stayed the same, or how do you feel about these years of running a business here?
I mean, it's hard to say because, I'm lucky. My co-founders are Austrian. They speak German, right? They were more experienced as well. Like they were older, they're more experienced in kind of how to kind of organize things in that way. And so they took over a lot of that responsibility. So I just had to worry about the creating part, right? I didn't have to worry about like, okay, setting up the GmbH, setting up the bank account, making sure, that all the licenses for having a business was checked. Like my sole job was like, okay, solve the problem and make it good for our users and make the product good. I think it's probably gotten easier. It was pretty tough back then. I know, especially when we were in the beginning, because we didn't have investors. Like we always said, like we really want to control our own vision. And obviously if you take investment money, that's, if you take someone's money, you lose some control. That's just the way it works, right? And that's fine. But for us, we knew what we wanted to do. So there was really no need for that external audience yet. But that also meant it was a lot harder because obviously we were bootstrapped. I remembered us trying to apply for grants. We couldn't get a lot of grants. So that was pretty tough. Now I see a lot of grants being advertised in Austria. I see a lot more, I see the billboard, the advertisements of like Erste Bank or something saying, we believe in you. I'm not sure how true it is, but I see it. So at least it seems at a surface level to be a lot more welcoming to businesses. I do think 8 years ago it's a little tough, but we made it through. So
I read that, as you said, US citizens are the only one among the 2 countries that still have to file taxes, even if they live abroad.
Yeah.
Obviously, this was surprising for me, especially that's only 2 countries doing that. But I also understand that not many people know that. Not many Americans know that.
I still, to this day, I get like sometimes nervous when people ask me what I do. So like I was just at my daughter's kindergarten graduation. And I'm talking to 2 Americans. I know they're American. And then one of them starts like probing me about what I do. And I'm like, oh, I have a company. So well, what does your company do? And file taxes for Americans abroad. She's like, you just see her face, just like, I don't want to talk to you. And I'm like, you don't have, like, I'm not the IRS, right? If you ask me, I'll tell you what the rules are. Yes, you do have to file. Right, but I'm not here to like ruin the mood of the party. So I feel like I ruin the mood of the party sometimes when people ask me what I do. But yeah, a lot of people still don't know, right? So it is this educational journey. I think most people find out by talking to other Americans during the time frame, or just, you see it a lot more in the news. Obviously, our politics have been making headlines. And with that, I think definitely a lot more people learned about their legal obligations of holding that U.S. passport. And it extends not just to people that have a U.S. passport or U.S. citizenship, but it's also if you were living in the U.S. and had a U.S. green card and maybe you didn't give up your green card properly, you still have to file the U.S. taxes. So, I always think everyone must know at this point, but we see every single year that there's just more people that find out like, oh, I did not realize I had to do this, which is great because my Expect Taxes, obviously we have, the MC procedure streamlining. And so people come to us super stressed out, and then we can tell them like, don't worry, we got you. You don't have to file for like 10 or 20 years because that's really intimidating. You have to file 20 years of tax returns, but you only need to file for 3 back years, a couple back years of a bank account report, and then you're compliant. And so we have that like program set up for you. It's very standardized and easy to use. People don't know yet, and I think they continue to learn. So if you're listening to this and you're just learning for the first time, my advice is always, please don't stress out. There is options and solutions, and you're not the only one. And I can understand it's intimidating, but we all get through it, right? We all get through it, we all do our taxes, and we all continue on with life.
But maybe we can also add something to make them less anxious, that it doesn't mean that they will have to pay. They just have to file, but not necessarily pay.
Exactly. Most expats actually don't pay taxes, right? And I think my favorite ones are always the ones that come and they're so nervous. Maybe they have children that are under the age of 17 that have a valid social security number, which they can claim on their tax return. And then if you live in a high tax country like Austria or a lot of the countries in the EU, you actually could get a refund. And so like people come, it's like, oh, I haven't filed my taxes. Like, oh, I'm like, what if I owe thousands of dollars to the US government? What am I going to do? And then they go through the streamlining procedure with us, and then they get refunds of like, it's up to $1,700 per child. So we have people that are getting like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 of refunds in one tax return times 4, right? Because they have to file 4 years with us, the 3 back years in the current year. And then it's also, the funny thing is, if you don't pay the IRS on time, you owe them interest, right? But if the IRS doesn't pay you on time, even if it's your fault that you didn't file the tax return, they pay you interest too. It's obviously not a huge amount, but I still think that that's nice that you get your refund and the IRS will put a little cherry on top for you to say thank you for filing. So obviously not everyone gets a refund, but it's always great when someone gets relieved and realizes they owe no taxes, and even better when someone gets money from the IRS.
Yeah. How does it work? Explain me how my expat taxes works.
So with my expat taxes, basically, you go on, you create an account, you let us know what's your name, where do you live, what kind of income do you have. So if you still have U.S. income, you probably have some type of U.S. tax form. So it's commonly a W-2 if you have salaried income, or 1099 if you have investment income. This means nothing to people that have no U.S. source income, obviously, but we have a section for that. And then you tell us, okay, what kind of foreign income do you have, right? Do you have salary from your Austrian employer, your German employer, your employer in Singapore? Do you have self-employment income? Do you have a company that you incorporated? Do you have a GmbH somewhere, right? Do you have a limited in the UK? What kind of investments do you have? Do you have just bank interest? Did you invest in any type of ETFs in the country you live in? Do you have rental income? So basically any types of income, right? Like all the different types of income. We have a very comprehensive, suite of different income sources you can add in. And then you just tell us what your income was in the local currency. So you don't have to convert it. So you would say, like, I worked in Austria, I earned in euros. This is how much I was paid, the gross amount, so brutto, how much I got, paid as income tax, so how much was withheld. That's pretty much it. You just put that information in, and that's it. You just put that information in, and then we would go ahead and calculate the tax return for you, right? So it's you just telling us, okay, well, what income you have, and then you can choose, do you want to use our base plan, our reviewed plan, our premium plan, just meaning, do you want to do the tax return all on yourself? Then you just put in the information, you pay, 99 euros or so, and then you get a tax return and you file it. Or do you say, I put in my income, but I'm not 100% sure about like 1 or 2 pieces. I would really love to talk to a tax professional about, I have 1 or 2 questions. I have 1 or 2 documents I would love someone to look at, just to make sure I entered it right. That would be our reviewed plan. So you have a tax professional will then go look at your input, look at any documents you uploaded, and then help you, just make sure you have that peace of mind. We sign the tax return. And then obviously, if something happens, if the IRS were to reach out afterwards, we're also there to support you with that notice, right? And then we have the premium plan where people go, I actually would really love someone to like hold my hand through this. I definitely have more than 1 or 2 questions. I have more than 1 or 2 documents. I would like to just work with a tax professional from day one. And that's the premium plan. So you could go, go in, I could be your tax professional, right? We have a big group of tax professionals, and especially during deadline season, all of us, we're working 24/7 at that point. And then obviously there's other add-ons. You could add on a video call if you wanted a video call to just talk to someone for 30 minutes through the tax return process. Basically, again, it's this tax software that was born out of, okay, let's solve this problem. And we always said we wanted to just create a software to solve like the base problem for someone that was salaried, right? Like, a simple tax return. And that was our vision in 2018. And now we have just become the most comprehensive tax software for expats in terms of US taxes, right? Where you could go in and you could be an English teacher somewhere and you could file your taxes with us. Or you could be, an executive at a big tech firm and file your taxes with us. Or you could have your own company, right? Your own limited somewhere out there in the world and still file your taxes with us. You could have US investments, you can have foreign investments, you can have foreign trusts. Like basically you could have a straightforward tax case, or you could have a tax case that a tax professional normally would quote you $10,000, $20,000 for sometimes, which is ridiculous. Yeah. And then you can come to us and, we automate a lot of it, and so that we can keep the prices as affordable as possible. And it's just about making that person not feel like they're complex. And I really hated that when I was starting out in my expat journey that I would like reach out to tax firms or, even people that say that they do expat taxes and they'd be like, oh, like you're complex because you live abroad. And it's like, no, right? Like that's what we're built for. So like whenever someone emails us in our support, right, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm so complex, I live in Finland. It's like, you're not complex, you're an expat. This is a solution built for you.
When do they qualify to file taxes as US expats?
So there's actually really no difference in terms of like if you're abroad or not. It's just if you're a US citizen, you have to file your taxes every year. Now, if you're living abroad, if you're really physically abroad on the due date of April 15th, then you would have an extension. You would be considered an expat, right? Because you have an extended deadline. But the real difference is really just in the forms. So like everyone who's a US citizen files the same kind of tax return, which is called 1040. And if you're an expat, you might be eligible for expat tax benefits like the foreign earned income exclusion or the foreign tax credit. That's nothing that the individual person has to figure out themselves. That's what we do. You just tell us your income and we decide what's the best tax approach and how to optimize your tax return. But we actually have a lot of people that still live in the US and they just kind of go abroad every once in a while. Or we have people that they're in the US and they just have a few investment accounts abroad, but they prefer to use our software because we can handle the international assets part of it. It is actually really for any person filing a US tax return that has any type of international aspect to their US tax return. But there is not really this, okay, you have to be abroad for a certain amount of time. Like, of course, if you want to qualify for certain expat tax benefits, for example, the foreign earned income exclusion, you have to be abroad for 330 full days in a consecutive 12-month period. That's one. If you want to qualify for using foreign tax credits, you obviously have to be a tax resident somewhere and pay some form of income taxes in that country. So normally that would require you living in a country for over 6 months, right, to be a tax resident. Really, any person filing a U.S. tax return, whether they're living abroad or they're living in the U.S. and they have, just that international aspect, they can use my expat taxes. So we have a lot of expats actually that are in the U.S. We don't advertise it as much, right? But we also cover the 1040 NR, which is tax returns for non-residents. There's actually quite a lot of expats, like, Austrian citizens that are living in the U.S. that will file with us because we can also support that.
Does it work for the opposite when people live in the US as expats? Can they use the software to file the taxes in back home or not?
No, so you would have to use it for the US. Like, we
Okay.
do have partners now, so like at the moment of this recording, you could go through My Expat Taxes and then you could sign on to work with one of our partners as well. So you do the US tax return with us and then our partners would then help you for Portuguese taxes or French taxes or German taxes. But this is something that you would work through with a different partner.
Okay.
But the benefit is that it's all on our platform so that we're talking to the partner so we know, okay, like when is that tax return done? What are the income taxes you're paying in that country? So we can make sure the tax returns are aligned.
How do you handle business here? Your team is quite remote, right? You work remotely a lot?
Let's see, half the team is in Austria. And so we do come into the office on Tuesdays, which is, this is the day of the recording. So this is, again, my Vienna day, right? But we do go in the office on Tuesdays just to meet. No one's required to. I think if you want to work remote, you can work remote as long as you get the job done. And I work remote a lot too. Yeah, our Austrian team does come in on Tuesdays so that we can just enjoy each other's company, eat good food for lunch, right? But most of the team is remote, and I like that. If they're not in Austria, then we do have quite some folks just scattered around the EU or the UK, and then otherwise we have a lot of folks in the Philippines.
This obviously tells a lot about the work
Yeah.
culture, which everyone would love to
Yeah.
have that flexibility. And probably people will be asking us, are you hiring?
We are hiring, actually. Yeah, so I'm sure if you go on our careers page, you would see at any moment open positions. We also have proactive applications. I just wanted to build a company that I wanted to work at. We all work together, like us as co-founders. We all worked together for quite a few years before that. And, you see it. You see in the news, especially from Silicon Valley, these companies, these startups, they get the investment money. They turn into that, fictional unicorn. And then they promote this, like, work 24/7, always on the grind, like sleeping under your desk. And no, I didn't move to Austria to not enjoy my life. If I didn't want it, I would stay in California, right? So like if I wanted that, I would have stayed in Silicon Valley, but that's not what I wanted. I firmly believe that you can have a thriving professional life and also have a normal life outside of that. I mean, I am probably considered a workaholic here in Austria, but it's different. I own a company, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't expect my employees to work 24/7 or sleep on it. Like, that's just crazy. That's not what they signed up for.
100%. That's one of the. I also, when I want to hire someone, one of the things I have to look at is, okay, but I have to make sure so this person, all these duties fit in the 40-hour week, because I'm working more, but I cannot make them work more. I don't expect them to work more. So that's the challenge for someone who's hiring other people. But also the culture of sleeping under the desk so you don't go home. I also believe that recently maybe it's been a bit of a myth, because it might have happened or happens, but I don't think it's on a regular basis. I don't think it happens every day anymore. If someone is raising millions, why do you still sleep under the desk then? Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I left California a long time ago. Well, not that long ago, but it's still like 11 years now or so that I left. When really the thing that kind of broke the camel's back was I was burning. I was 21 and I was burning out. I was completely burnt out. Like I was at university. I was overloading on credits so that I could graduate early. And then, so I was already doing more at university. And then I would do my internship at Cisco, and I would go to school, I'd go to university, I'd finish university, I would then go work part-time at Cisco, and then every day after I was ended at Cisco at about like 5 or 5:30 or 6 or something, I would then get in my car and I would drive from San Jose to Mountain View, and I would start my second internship at a startup. And so honestly, I don't know, like, and the thing is, the internship I had, I mean, they were like one of those viral, like, you know, crowdfunded launches. They sold a million of product in the first day, right? We worked out of their apartment. So like, it is kind of it. You literally, the office is the apartment. So yeah, you do sleep every day there. And it's, you know, I remember what killed me was like, you know, I turned 21. I'm pretty sure it was a weekend that I said, okay, I don't want to work on my birthday, because then I work almost every day, but I really don't want to work on my birthday or on certain holidays. Like, that's where I draw the limit, right? I don't think it's a very big limit I draw, you know?
Once a year.
Yeah. And then so I said, okay, I don't want to work on my birthday, turning 21, right? And I still remember after that, I had asked that owner for, you know, some shares. I worked really hard. They didn't have that many employees. I really put my heart and soul in it. And I remember she told me, if you really wanted to own a piece of this company, you would have worked every day. And so that's what made me leave. That is really the straw that broke the camel's back there. And that's really the day I turned around and I called my then fiance and said, I'm not staying here. You don't have to look anymore for a job in San Francisco. I'm moving. I won't stay here. I'm not going to have a nice life here.
Wow.
So I do think that it's me here. I don't think it happens. I don't think it's culturally acceptable, right? Like
first you would sue the person.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we did have an incident where someone was working late at the office and they slept there. And I mean, I was concerned. I was like, what did I do wrong to have that person feel the need to work so late, right? And so like, for me, that's a show of me not being a great CEO if someone feels the need to work so late. I mean, obviously, it was more their own personal thing, whatever, I don't get into it. But I think that here is like, if my employees did that, I would feel like a failure as an employer. And I think if you were in Silicon Valley, if your employees didn't do that, you would feel like a failure. Like, it's very opposite. I don't know. I can't speak for everyone. I can only speak on my own experiences and my own way of how I interpret things, right? How I process them. But that's why I left.
Unbelievable. Sounds like a phrase from a movie or something. One of those Silicon Valley movies.
I mean, they're based on something, aren't they? Yeah.
But but also, I don't know what the regulation is, but in Austria, I know for sure that there's a minimum of hours that the employee has to be off before they can go on to work again on the next shift, on the next day.
I assume everyone adheres to that. So that's all I can say. I don't do my own time tracking because I don't have to as an owner, but you know, I make sure our HR's on it when people don't take their PTO or things like that. So.
No, it has its own perks. I mean, sometimes it might be more difficult here in Austria to scale your business into a global business, but then it has a lot of good things.
Yeah, it's definitely different in Austria, I think, to scale business. I guess that's also the question of what kind of business do you want to have. I totally understand the ambition that someone wants to build a business and the next year be on the cover of Forbes.
Yeah.
Right, I get that.
30 under 30 immediately.
I mean, I wanted that too at one point. The 30 under 30 is funny. I remember I wanted that. I really wanted that. I really wanted that achievement. And then I was turning, like 29 or so. And then it was at that point where I said, okay, like, it's not gonna happen for me. That's okay. I'm okay with it. That was the year they emailed me, and they somehow found me, and then like I got it. But
Really?
yeah, but the thing is,
Do you know why? Because you didn't take that day off.
yeah, but the thing is that I got on the list, and guess what?
Wow.
The next day's the same. I have a cool T-shirt though.
Oh, they sent you a t-shirt?
No, I bought it for $60. Yeah.
They could have sent the t-shirt for free, I think.
No, I paid for it. But I figured I should at least get some souvenir from it. But that's the thing is, I think it's also different if you have kids a little bit. And maybe, I don't know, I hope the audience member doesn't take offense. But it does change a little bit your perspective. Like, it's,
Yeah.
I remember when we started the company, I didn't have kids yet, and I worked nonstop. Like, I did not take a break at all. And I really burnt myself out a lot too, because that's just kind of my personality, honestly. And then I had kids, and then you just realize you can't work 24/7 because you have a responsibility. But I do think that I have learned to be a lot more productive, because you can't be productive when you work 20 hours straight.
Yeah.
It's not. I think it's a lot more productive that you work for 2 or 3 hours, really productive. Then you take a break, and then you work again 2 or 3 hours, really productive.
I mean, it's different if you have a deadline and you really have to do
Yeah,
it.
that's
Get the
different.
deadline. This week you just
Don't
gotta
look at me
work.
at April 15th.
Yeah.
This is not the example I want to set. I'm just sitting in front of a computer. But
Exactly,
yeah.
but that cannot be your everyday. Why would you do that to yourself every day? And then suddenly you're 50 or 60 and you start realizing, but life is short.
Life is short. Life is short, and you want to enjoy every day. My thing is just, you have a choice every single day to enjoy the day, and you have it's just small choices. It's not like this. It's not like this big thing where like every day you have to get onto the cover of Forbes, right? It's this everything. Did you make your matcha the way you want to make it? Did it taste nice? Did you get a nice lunch? Did you
get
have
enough
some?
sleep?
Yeah, did you get enough sleep? Did you go work out when you want to work out? Did you go on a nice run? Did you hang out with your family? So I do think, at least personally for me, it's more about just the small moments every day. And then in terms of work, like making sure that every day we just get 1% better, right? We have these goals and we hit them, and just every day you keep moving forward, because eventually, even if it feels small at that point, if you just keep moving forward, you'll get there.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I want to ask you for one final advice about what would you tell someone who wants to start a business but is afraid to quit their job? Because we've been there. It's quitting your job so you can go into an entrepreneurial journey. It is sometimes scary.
Yeah.
Because there's no security. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to work. So what would you say to those people?
I think you just have to have a realistic look at your finances and what you can do. Right? Look, if you have a partner, if they would be willing to support you. This is where you have to have an honest conversation with yourself. Can you survive for the next year without income? Because if you get investment, it's different. I didn't get investment money. I didn't pay myself for a long time. Can you survive? Do you have enough in your savings? Do you have enough in your savings not only that you survive without income, but that you can use your savings to pay employees? And then on top of that, do your founders have enough? Like, how much can you put in the pot? Do you need investors? And then if you have a partner, right, will your partner be okay with that? Will they support you? So that's the honest part of it, right? You can't sugarcoat that. Like, can you financially survive? And if you can, because I think most people generally can, right? That's a pretty hard ask. Again, my situation, I got lucky because I had a lot of savings already. I've always been really good with money management in that sense, but
Obviously, you file taxes.
yeah, I like money, right? I like taxes, money. I've always been that's my thing. But if that's not your case, then I think it's okay to work part-time. I think it's okay that then, then you sacrifice your weekends and you sacrifice your evenings. But that's the thing, in Austria, you only work, 38.5 hours?
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot more hours in the day. I'm not recommending everyone to become a workaholic, but obviously if you're trying to start something, if you're trying to make your dream come true, it's going to require the other 38.5 plus some more hours. And so if you want to start a company, you have to make some sacrifices. You have to sacrifice your own income and you have to sacrifice your time. And just, when I started my expat taxes, I didn't pay myself for a long time, and I worked from the minute I woke up to the minute I went to sleep. And it was really tough, but it pays off in the end, right? But you have to work hard for your dreams. They don't just come true. They just don't come true, right, out of nowhere. So maybe they do. For me, it didn't. For me, I had to work really hard. And I still work really hard, but it's obviously now it's a lot more comfortable. We have a lot of employees. We have a nice structure going on. So I can take more than just my birthday off.
Oh, that's nice to hear. But also maybe it's the age difference. If you're in your 20s, probably the chances are very low that you have savings. If you're in your 20s, you cannot go on for a year. But you don't have a family, you don't have kids, so you can
have the time.
Work after work. You have the time.
You have the energy.
Exactly. You have other friends who are willing to jump in for free, just so you can build these things, which is very rare to find once you enter the 30s and you have a family, and that's when you need to start doing that conversation with yourself, as you said.
Exactly. I think I was 24, when we started my expat taxes. My founders were a lot older though. So we always joke because when we were founding the company, it was I was in my 20s. The next one was in his 30s, one was in the 40s, and one was in the 50s.
You're 4 founders?
We had 4 when we started.
How did that work?
It was 3, and then we added 1.
Okay, now this brings me to a new final question, because I hear a lot from a lot of investors from pitch sessions that the perfect number is 3, 2 is good, 1 is not good, 4 is not good. So I'm a solo founder.
Yeah.
You are 4 founders. So apparently we are on the wrong side according to the templates.
There's no perfect template. For me, if I were to give advice on finding founders, is we didn't have investors again, right? So we couldn't hire anyone. And so I could do the tax, 2 people could do the coding, 1 person could do the operational part. So we could run the company without having to hire someone else. Although we learned very quickly we could not do design, so we did have to do our first hire. But for me, it was always can the founders do something? And when I say do something, I don't mean make a PowerPoint presentation. I mean do something. Get in there and do it, right? And that's the thing too, is that, I was never coding before. And then now that's probably 50% of my job is just coding, right? And so you just have to learn to go for it. But with it, we started with 3. So we had started with 3, and then we quickly found out okay, no, we do need someone else to do the coding. And then it's also, again, we didn't have that much to offer. And so we only had shares to offer. And I'm really happy with that decision, because one of our co-founders didn't retire, right? Because obviously different age gap. And then so now, almost 10 years later, it is now one is in the 30s, one is in the 40s, and one is in the 50s. And the one that was in the 50s is now in the 60s and retired. So it worked out. So it was 3, then it went to 4, and it went to 3. I guess 3 is a good number because we are now 3. But
I think what they mean is that it's easier to get the voting after 3.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So that's probably why they stuck to number 3.
I have a really strong opinion, so I don't have that much of I have a really strong personality.
There's no voting in our board.
I'm just kidding. I don't know. You can ask my co-founders. Maybe they will say I'm not kidding. What else? But they're used to me. It's been a few years now.
Anything you'd like to tell us what's coming for my expat taxes before we close?
Yeah,
I mean the deadline, of course. You just passed one, but there's another one.
There's always a deadline. If you're listening and you're an American or you're an expat living in America, the main thing is don't stress. We got you. I get you. I'm in your shoes, right? Every time we come to solve any of our problems or, look to add new features. I always come from it from the standpoint of like, well, how do we make this easy for both the taxpayer and the tax preparer? Because I'm literally the taxpayer and tax preparer at the same time. So I think that's a really nice thing and a great, perspective to have. And at the same time, it's just, there's so much broken in tax, not just US tax, but international tax. Like, come on, the world is so fluid now. You can move abroad so easily. You can live in so many different countries. There's so many different types of visas now, right? These digital nomad visas are popping up. And I don't know if the US will be the only, like one of two countries to have citizen-based taxation. Like, as I start seeing more and more headlines, I know countries are considering it. They're really considering, taxing their citizens that are now moving, to no tax, income tax countries and then coming back, right? So I don't know how taxation will look 10 years from now, but I know it's not going to get simpler. It's never going to get simpler. And so for my expat taxes, definitely what we look for is like, of course, we're tackling the problem of US taxes because the US is it's a tough tax system, right? But I'm really excited about the future of potentially just solving more international tax problems, right? We already have our partners in different countries and just keeping to make that process a lot smoother. And so that maybe one day you can file your taxes in different countries with My Expat Taxes. So you never know, follow along for the journey. And of course, if you are an American or a US green card holder and you have questions about your US taxes, look no further than myexpattaxes.com.